the happiest hour of the day. And today we have a very special happy hour for you. We have Hetz Ventures, which is an Israeli VC that invest, for the most part, in DevOps companies, enabling us to have an AMA. So ask them anything. They have this amazing panel of experts, and we have an awesome moderator. So they're going to kick it off. Feel free to roast them and enjoy the food, and you guys will enjoy it later.
Hi, everyone, and thank you for joining us so late. My name is Or. I'm from Hetz Ventures. For those who don't know Hetz Ventures, so we are early stage venture capital. You don't hear me? We are a early stage venture capital, and we invest. Our major investment is around DevOps, dev tool, infrastructure, etc. We're very excited to be here with all of you and with this amazing panel. Thank you very much for joining us. Let's start with maybe introducing the panel. So go ahead, Mandi.
All right. Yeah. Thanks for having us tonight. My name is Mandi Walls. I am a DevOps advocate at PagerDuty. PagerDuty makes your phone go ding, right, when things go wrong. If you recognize me, you used to work at Chef, so you may recognize me from there. If you're confused, like I now wear green instead of orange, and just happy to be here.
Hello, my name is Ilya. I'm a DevOps manager at SentinelOne. We're a very big cyber company doing EPP, EDR, XDR. Very glad to be here.
Hey all, I'm Niv from Tel Aviv. I'm leading the DevOps at Melio, and I'm an AWS community hero. Happy to be here as well. Ready for questions.
Hi everyone, I'm Tal Kain. I'm the co-founder and CEO of Velocity. I'm a tech in my background. Velocity is a company that is creating production-like environments for developers. We were invested by Hetz, Insight, and Greycroft, total of $22 million until now. Pleasure to be here.
Okay, guys. So before we start, I just want to say that the main point of this event, the Ask Me Anything panel, is that you will ask the question. If you won't do it, you will have to hear me asking question, and nobody wants it. So be with us. So maybe we'll start with our guest from abroad, Mandi. So I think that most of the people here in the audience know like what days in a DevOps engineer looks like, but I'm not sure that everyone understands like what is a DevOps advocate and what is the difference between DevRel and Dev advocacy and whatever. So maybe you will start and share with us like maybe what are your day-to-day looks like and what are your goal responsibility in the company, etc. And
Yeah, awesome. Thank you. So I'm a DevOps advocate at a software company, and what that kind of means is we understand that DevOps is a combination of tools and culture, and PagerDuty is a tool, but to make the best use of it, you kind of have to adjust your culture a little bit. Like there are things that when we talk to large companies, there are things that they're doing sort of old school, right? And we kind of come in and say, hey, think about doing blameless postmortems. Think about, cleaning up some of those alerts so that, folks are having a better experience with their on-call. So we take a more cultural approach to, what folks can be doing with their teams, not only to be successful with our product, but to have a successful DevOps culture at their organizations. So that's kind of where it's different from, doing day-to-day DevOps engineering. And part of that work is talking to customers, coming to events like this to talk to all of you. We run a podcast. We have a Twitch stream. Like we are very much the multimedia center, but just trying to help folks understand that there's like a 360 view when you want to be doing DevOps.
Amazing. Thank you very much. So maybe a quick follow-up question because I'm curious. So definitely PagerDuty is a big company and there is like many different companies here in the audience. When do you think it's a good time, or when do you think you should hire a developer advocate and start?
That's a tough one, right? And it kind of depends, I think, on your product. So part of it, like my last job, we had an open source product. So like having community management and DevRel and those folks was a very early function, so that you are managing part of the open source product and like helping the community that way. PagerDuty is a SaaS, so you kind of get a little bit later in the life cycle of the company before you really figure out, well, the customers no longer look like us, right? And you kind of lose the same kind of discussion, and you want folks to like actually go in and do a little bit more in-depth cultural discussions with folks. So I would say you probably never want one before you have a marketing person. So like somebody tracks what I do and make sure I'm talking to the right people. Yeah, early is better, right? So you can get all the good talks with all the customers when they have questions.
Amazing. So maybe we'll move to Niv and Ilya. So you both, I would say, experienced manager in fast-growing companies. And I know Niv team, I'm not sure about Ilya teams, but I'm sure you did like a lot of mistakes and a lot of good stuff and bad stuff. And maybe you can share with us based on your experience, like maybe one or two things that you think that everyone here needs to know and you don't want them to do this mistake and think they were proud of. It can be tools, hiring, anything. Yeah.
Okay, so one thing I'm glad I did, and we're totally standing behind it, is if you don't know, at Melio, we are almost 100% serverless, which means we don't have even a single Kubernetes cluster. Whoa! And yeah, sometimes it's for the best and sometimes it's for the worst. For example, there are people here who were candidates at Melio for the DevOps team, and they chose other teams that do have Kubernetes. So sometimes not having Kubernetes is not the most attractive things for candidates, but it is the right thing for us because we actually evaluated the actual needs of our infrastructure before choosing the technology. And we didn't just went with the trend in the industry. So I'm glad we did it because we actually evaluate the needs every time we choose a new infrastructure or we start a new service. So this is a thing that I completely stand behind. A thing that not so much of regret doing, but I would have done differently in hindsight, is that I led the DevOps for a year and a half in a company that was in hypergrowth, that still is in hypergrowth, without having a VP R&D. So we basically had a VP product, but we didn't have a VP R&D. And I feel like nowadays I have more tools to cope with it in a way that it's more healthy for the company than I had at the get-go. So that's about it.
My example is a bit more abstract. So I think what I'm proud from the last 12 months is the focus that we're doing on evaluating trade-offs and making good decision on what we are going to build by ourselves, what we're going to adopt, and which technical gaps we're going to take care ASAP, and what we can live another quarter with. This practice give us a very good flexibility to deliver fast and still take care of our gaps. This is something that took us time to do the right way. And this is, I think, something that I'm very proud from the last year.
Fantastic. Thank you very much. Maybe last question on my end, and then I hope that some of you will ask some questions. Tal, it's for you. So Ilya already started to speak about build versus buy, let's call it that way. And it's a big question, I think, that everyone asking themselves, like any company, that startups specifically asking themselves. We know that winning R&D budget is a tough one. And yeah, I'm really curious if you can share with us, like, why, when you started Velocity, why did you think that Velocity is something that everyone needs to buy and not build inside their companies?
Yeah, so I personally love this question because I had the same question for everything that we are buying for our for our team. And I think it's from the developer prism, it's always about the focus. Can we focus on what the customers need and what the company is trying to solve? So from my point of view, when you grow fast and you want to move as fast as possible, everything that is not your core business is something that you need to think really hard, whether you actually want to move your focus from your target and actually build something like that. So in Velocity's case, we saw a lot of companies that
to be aligned as much as we can with our potential clients' data model and how they see the world, because this way we'll be able to preserve most of their semantics. So let's start by understanding a bit more how our potential clients' platforms look like. In Acceptance's case, it's user-generated content platforms. So one example will be a social media platform. I hope most of you are familiar with LinkedIn. So in LinkedIn we have a user, which is a real person identity, hopefully a real person identity in the platform. We have a group, which is a group of users under the same domain. It could be data scientists in Israel, or data engineers in San Francisco, or Scala haters. And we also have a post, which is essentially a piece of content a user creates. It could have a text, an image, a video, maybe all of those. So those are the base entities, and on top of that we have a comment. Now, a comment, if you think about it, is pretty similar to a post. It's a piece of content a user creates, but it has a context. It's a comment to a post, it's a comment to another comment, maybe. And we have a page or a company page. Now, a company page can be thought of as a private case of a group. It's a group of users under the same domain, the company's domain. So this is an example of a social media platform. Let's take a look at another example of a chat platform. I hope you're all familiar with WhatsApp. So in WhatsApp, again, we have a user, which is a real person identity in the platform. We have a group, which is a chat of one or more users. And we have a message, which is a piece of content a user creates. It might also have an audio attached to it. And so if you think about other chat platforms you're familiar with, for example, let's take Telegram. So it consists more or less of the same entities. Maybe it's not a group, it's a channel, but it's the same idea. And I think we are comfortable enough to start constructing our own data model. And as always, when it comes to data modeling, there is a trade-off between the abstraction and the semantics. So if we add more layers of abstraction to our data model, we will lose some of the semantics. And if we choose to preserve most of the semantics, we will lose the abstraction across different platforms. Just a note to keep in mind. So based on what we saw, the examples we saw, we can come up with this data model. So we have a user, a collection that has a collection type. It might be a page, it might be a group. And we have a content which has a content type, might be a post, maybe a message, or a comment. And apart from that, all of those have the different relationships in line. Now, this approach doesn't work. And it doesn't work from two main reasons. One is that it's not very scalable. So let's say we would like to support new platform that has different relationships between its different entities. We'll have to extend our schema to support this new relationship. So for example, some platforms have collections of collections. And for that, we'll have to extend our collection schema to support this type of relationship. And we'll end up extending our schema again and again for each platform. We would like to support its new relationships. And some attributes will make sense for some use cases, but won't make any sense for other use cases. So it's not very scalable. This is one problem. Can anyone see the other? So we are trying to maintain many-to-many relationship here, and we have it in several places. But for example, on the content schema, we have comments, which is another piece of content, right? So let's understand why it's problematic. So this is a comment for a post in a social media platform. So a post has a list of its comments, which again are contents. Sorry. And each of those comments has a list of its own comments and so on and so on. So let's say we'd like to delete one of those comments. We'll have to find that post and traverse this content tree, find the comment and delete it. So it's hard to maintain this way. Another example is that a group has a list of its users subscribed to it, and each user has a list of the groups he or she is subscribed to. So again, we're facing the same problem. And if you pinpoint a problem here, is that we're trying to capture or to model graph data relationships intensive in a tabular way. So what we decided to do at ActiveFence is to add two more entities to the schema. So one is a media, which is essentially a thin element that just captures singular media item, the text, the audio, the video, or the image. And the relation entity, and the relation captures the relationship between different entities. And this can be also thought of as relations from graph theory. So the relation type will be the predicate. For example, is comment of, is description of, different type of relations. In that field, the subject and the object captures the order, or who relates to whom. And let's see an example to understand it better. So in this example, we have a relation type of is created by. So the content of type post is created by the user. Hence, the content is the subject of the sentence, and the user is the object of the sentence. And therefore, the content is the subject of the relation, and the user is the object of the relation. Another example here is the is comment of relation type to capture relationship between a comment and a post. So the content of type comment is the subject of the relation, and the content of type post is the object of the relation, because the comment is a comment of a post. And we can see here now that if we take a look at the content, for example, the schema is much thinner. So in particular, the media is not captured in a line. It will be captured using the media entity and another relation type to describe this type of relationship. And let's see how it addresses the two problems we saw earlier. So first, let's say we would like to support new platform with new relationships between its different entities. All we have to do is to add another relation type to capture the relationship between those entities. And for the many-to-many relationship, here let's say we would like to delete the comment. So the comment now is an entity with its own rights. All we have to do is to find this entity, and we can delete it and all the relations attached to it, and much easier. And this is a real-world example. So we have a user in a social media platform, Donald Trump. One of his posts, so again, the post is created by the user, by you, Donald Trump, and one of the comments to that post is comment of Donald Trump post. But as I said earlier, the media will not be captured in line. It will be captured using a media item and another relation type. And this is how it's persisted if we would persist it in JSON lines for this example. So we just have the entity type and the ID. And this is a content, so we capture the content type within it. And this is an example of how we persist the user and the relation entity, which also can be thought of as the edges in the graph, and the content, the user are the nodes in the graph. So again, the relation type is created by, and the subject ID and the object ID points to the ID of the content and the user respectively. And this is for the media, so the media item holds the text in line, and another relation type captures the relationship between the media and the post. So what we've seen so far, we started by understanding the problem domain, and after we did that, we started constructing our data model using the relation entity that made it cross-platform and scalable. Now, constructing a data model that is abstract enough is one task, and constructing a data model that is abstract enough and easy to work with and maintain is a completely different task. And we did have some challenges with it. So, by the way, we are working with Spark, and we are at Python conference, so we are looking at PySpark code. And let's say we want to query the data, and again, let me remind you, it's persisted for the example in JSON line. So we're essentially reading all the data and filtering for a data frame of content of type post, another data frame of relations, where the relation type is created by. Okay, if we want to collect this post user data. And another data frame of the users. Now we have to do two joins here, essentially. We need to join the contents data frame, the post data frame, with the relations data frame or the edges of the graph, and join the result with the user data frame. And the post ID should match the subject ID, and the user's ID should match the object ID, because the user is the object of the relation and the content is the subject of the relation. And the main challenge here is that one that wants to query the data has to know for each relation type who's the subject and who's the object. And it turns out it's not an easy task, because if you think about it, it depends on how you phrase it. So in this example, it's is created by, so the post is created by the user, so the content of that post is the subject and the user is the object. But it could as well have been is creator of. And in this example, the user is creator of the post, and therefore the user is the subject now, and the content is the object. So one that want to query the data has to know for each relation type who's the subject and who's the object to make a proper join, and it's very error-prone. So this is how we addressed it. This code does exactly the same as the code we saw before. So we developed a lib that actually abstracts those two complexities. So let's go over it quickly. So what we are doing is initiating the library with the path for the data, and creating a data frame of contents of type post, and declaring the context we want to collect about our data, or the relation types we want to join our data frame with, and passing those to the library. Then the library under the hood infers for each relation types we supplied who's the subject and who's the object of it, reads the other data frames, and make those joins. And this is not an open source, so why am I showing you that at all? And the answer is that even though your data model might get complex, because the problem domain is complex, you can still develop tools that will help your engineers and researchers across the R&D organization to work easier and faster with that data model. So let's wrap it up now by catching bin Laden in a social media platform. So we have the example from the previous slide of bin Laden in a social media platform. We now all know that it's a content, right? And this content has two media attached to it. The first one is the text. So what you can see here, it's how it modeled the text is inlined, and again the relation entity to capture the relationship between the text and the post. And we have another media here, the image. So it's captured here using the is body media of relation type in the relation entity. And this is how we query it using the library. So again, we are creating a data frame of the post and declaring the context we want to collect about our data, or the relation types we want to join with, pass those two to the library, and getting the result, the data, about this post, its media in this example. And we can extend it much more. Of course, this was just